I am afraid to say I see nothing but calamity.
Calamity?
But that's not all. Your health. I see something very negative for your health.
I'm here with Cleo, and we're going to show you how to make a cinematic AI movie with Seedream 4.5 and Kling 3 using OpenArt Suite.
And thank you to OpenArt for sponsoring this tutorial.
The first thing we need to do for our movie is create an image of our character. Let's go to Create Image. This is where we can create our images using different models. Right now it's on Flux Context Pro. We have a lot of other models to choose from, and we'll play around with a few of those. We can also choose which aspect ratio. I'm going to go with 16:9, and then how many images we want. I've pasted the prompt for our main character, Cleo, and I'm going to do 2 images each and try a few different models. So let's do 2 images in Flux. And then I'll switch the model to Seedream 4.5. And then let's try Kling 3 Omni for images. To my eye, the ones from Flux look a little bit too AI. There's a little bit of that plastic shine on the skin. For Kling, I feel like the color grade is a little bit off, but more importantly, the character doesn't look the way I imagine her to look. The ones from Seedream, I am much happier with these. Especially this one. I think having what might be considered imperfections actually makes the character more real. I'm going to star this one. That's a great way to keep your favorites organized. And it's helpful when you want to refer back to images or videos that worked, or just for downloading all of your favorites. Now that I've chosen the face of my character, I want to create different angles of her for the character reference in Kling. I've had some success using character reference sheets, so let's make one of those by clicking Edit Image. I have this prompt that will create a character sheet, and it works pretty well with Nano Banana Pro. All right, so it did a good job of doing the front and side views of her, but we do want her to have some clothes on. So I'm just going to run this again and say she's wearing black jeans, a worn and baggy sage-colored t-shirt, and sandals. I tried this character sheet in a few videos and had trouble with the top being consistent. I think because there's a black shirt here and a green top here. So I just changed her outfit to a black scoop neck short sleeve shirt, camo cargo pants, and sandals. All right, so we have our character sheet for Cleo. We also need her fortune teller's shop. I thought we could call it Raven's Eye, which seems a little more interesting than fortunes. I like the angle of this one too. Sometimes straight on shots are kind of boring, and this will help later when we have her going in and out of the shop. Now we'll need to generate the inside of her shop. I feel like the crystal ball was kind of cheesy, and overall the shop just needed a little more character and life. So I added some old photos to the wall. Okay, that gives us all of the Seedream images we need to get started, thanks to some editing with Nano Banana. Let's head over to the video section in OpenArt Suite so we can turn these into videos with Kling 3 Omni. All right, we're on Kling 3 Omni, which allows us to create with reference images and generates native audio. I'm going to make sure that multi-shot is on. Multi-shot does the editing for us, and it helps to keep things consistent, at least within each multi-shot clip. I want to include visual references, so I'm going to click Add Visual Reference. I'm going to click Characters and Worlds, and I'm going to create a character. We'll start from an image, and now I'm going to add the images for my character. Because I favorited them, I can just go to favorites and see the ones I want. One close-up of her with a lot of photorealism, and then the character sheet. I'm going to say her name is Cleo in honor of the French New Wave movie Cleo from 5 to 7, which is about a woman waiting to hear back about some test results. And then I'm going to click Create. So here's what I'm going to do for this fortune teller scene. We can open with a 2-shot of them both sitting in front of the tarot cards. Then we can cut to Cleo saying Calamity, and then back to the fortune teller who says that she sees something negative related to her health. And then we cut back to Cleo's reaction. I did a bunch of these. Here are a few samples.
I am afraid to say I see nothing but calamity.
Calamity?
But that's not all. I am afraid to say I see nothing but calamity.
Calamity?
But that's not all. Your health.
Calamity.
But that's not all. Your health. I see something very negative for your health.
Negative?
But this is the one that I like the most.
I am afraid to say I see nothing but calamity.
Calamity.
But that's not all. Your health. I see something very negative for your health.
Now that I have her as a character reference in Kling, I can create my other scenes the same way. We have this scene where she's walking around and she's kind of oblivious and a piano falls from the sky and almost hits her. So there's a little bit of calamity there. I generated a lot of images of workers pulling on ropes to keep the piano up, but I wasn't really happy with the realism or the physics here. We don't really need to see the workers. So instead of doing references to show the whole scene, I used Cleo as the reference and then let Kling invent the piano and the building and all of the action. I think that worked out a lot better. Right, for this car crash scene, I did something very similar to a start frame, end frame animation, but it's slightly different and I think a little bit better of a technique. I used Nano Banana to create the opening scene. Then I had to have the car crash through the wall. I had to be very particular about the driver's side door is directly next to the table with the coffee in order to get the car inside the cafe. And then here's how it's different than start frame, end frame. I did it all in a single prompt, binding the images to specific points. I referenced this start frame at the beginning of the prompt. Then when the car crash happens, I reference the second image. The driver stealing the croissant got a little too complex for one prompt. Then I did a separate multi-shot clip that starts inside the car with the glass all over the hood, then shows her getting out and stealing the croissant and the coffee. Weirdly enough, Kling mixed up who is doing what the first time I ran this prompt. So I reinforced those relationships a little bit more. For her apartment scene, I wanted to have a consistent apartment, so I used this image so that all of my generations would show the same location. But I get different angles of the room. You can also grab a frame from the video to download it and use it as a start frame in another video. I tried that with this clip because I wasn't getting the lip motion I wanted on her final line.
Hello, Calamity. Hello, Calamity. Hello, Calamity.
I used this frame as a start frame in Kling 2.6, which I think is stronger for native audio with dialogue than Kling 3 Omni. Her voice didn't sound right.
Hello, Calamity.
So I ended up doing a bunch of generations in Kling 3 Omni because this is the final scene and her final line is really important to understanding the fortune teller's prediction at the very beginning of the movie.
Hello, Calamity.
Before you enjoy this little movie we made, be sure to check out the description on YouTube or in my bio on TikTok. There's a link to sign up for OpenArt, but I've also put a lot of the prompts I used to create this movie. Thank you again to OpenArt for sponsoring this video. Here is Cleo in Calamity.
I am afraid to say I see nothing but calamity.
Calamity.
But that's not all. Your health. I see something very negative for your health.
Hey Cleo, it's Dr. Patel. We got your test results back. They're negative.
Negative? Hello, Calamity.